This kid had one simple goal: he wanted to be strong. So he spent every single day training himself to the absolute limit. He spent years hunting down every magical beast and demon he could find to test his edge. One swing of his blade was all it took to settle any fight. Eventually, his power reached a point where he could cleave through solid rock like it was nothing. By the time he reached adulthood, Vice had officially become the strongest swordsman in the world. But being the strongest gets boring, and his senses were always dialed to 11. While out one night, he catches a whiff of a nasty presence coming from a nearby village. He drops into a crouch and prepares to launch. He takes off like a human rocket, streaking across the night sky. Back at the local camp, a couple of knights look up and wonder where their captain is heading. They figure he's found another monster to beat up, since flying is apparently just something he can do through pure training. At the village, a pack of lizard-like dragons is already looming over the houses. This is the work of Dance, a demon summoner currently chilling on the shoulder of a giant golem. She's having a blast, claiming the entire village for herself. Her pets are more than ready to start the looting and pillaging. She wants to make sure these humans learn to fear demons, but she's cut short. Vice slams into the ground right in front of her, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Dance's jaw drops the second she sees his face. It's this guy again. Vice looks at the monsters and doesn't even bother drawing his sword yet. He calmly tells her to turn back so they don't have a pointless battle. Dance isn't having it, claiming she's just in the mood to torment some humans. She looks down at him like he's just another toy for the demon race. She orders her pets to finish him off, and the dragons lunge from all sides. Vice doesn't even break a sweat, cleaving through the entire pack with one effortless spin. Dance just scoffs, deciding it's time to bring out the big guns. She casts a massive summoning circle for her gigantic golem. A mountain of rock and earth forms right behind Vice, looming over him. She orders the beast to crush him into minced meat, while boulders fly everywhere. Vice knows it'll just keep regenerating as long as the core is intact. He clenches his fist, charging it up with a heavy amount of blue magical energy. He launches a single punch that hits with enough force to shatter the golem into pebbles. Dance's confident smirk is replaced by a look of pure horror. She starts screaming that he's cheating because her golem was taken out in one hit. Vice just stands there, explaining that this is the result of his physical enhancement training. Dance's face turns red as she starts accusing him of being a stalker since he's always ruining her plans. Vice gives her a deadpan response, saying he prefers women who are a bit more modest. While she throws a tantrum about being dumped, someone else is watching them from the shadows. The mysterious hooded mage smiles, having found exactly what she was looking for. She holds out her hand and starts channeling a massive amount of purple magic. A teleportation circle suddenly blazes to life right beneath Vice's feet. Both Vice and Dance realize they've stepped into a trap, but it's too late to run. Vice can't believe his eyes as he's pulled into the unknown. A pillar of light erases everything, leaving only a massive crater behind. Back in the old world, the hooded mage watches the sky, her job finally done. Meanwhile, a single crescent moon hangs over a quiet mountain range. A pair of golden eyes slowly flutter open. Dance finds herself lying by a campfire, wrapped in nothing but a tattered piece of cloth. Vice walks into the camp with a fresh stack of firewood, asking if she's finally awake. He doesn't look bothered at all, even though their current situation is a complete mess. Dance takes one look at her lack of clothes and lets out a scream that could wake the dead. Vice explains that they were hit by some high-dimensional magic and ended up in this strange place. He casually mentions that he took the liberty of removing her clothes to check for any wounds. He leans in close, asking if she's okay while wondering if he should give her a more thorough checkup. Before he can even finish his sentence, she's already throwing hands in a blind panic. She calls him every name in the book while he just stares back, claiming he has zero interest in her body. He tells her to get a grip because they have way bigger problems to deal with right now. Dance finally takes a second to look around, and the reality of their situation starts to sink in. They're sitting in the middle of a ghost town, far away from any village they know. Above them, the sky is filled with multiple crescent moons, casting an eerie glow over the crumbling skyscrapers. Dance is completely paralyzed by the sight, unable to process what kind of world they've landed in. It's definitely not the sky she's used to seeing. Even her golem and dragon summons seem a bit on edge in this alien environment. Vice asks if she's finally calmed down, and she mumbles a little while hugging her knees. She's terrified, wondering what's going to happen to them in this wasteland. Vice is honest with her. He has no idea where they are or what comes next. She asks the one question that's been eating at her: can they ever go back home? Again, he doesn't have an answer for her, which only makes her feel more helpless. She snaps at him, frustrated that he's being so useless when she's this scared. But she's a demon summoner, and she refuses to just sit around and wait for something to kill them. Vice tells her he won't stop until he finds a way back, but he's going to need her help to pull it off. He looks her dead in the eye and swears that no matter what, he'll protect her. Dance just stares at him, her face turning a bright shade of red. She turns away, calling him an annoying smooth talker, while Vice apologizes without knowing what he did wrong. Their little moment is cut short when they both sense a presence lurking in the dark. Something is definitely watching them from the nearby brush. The rustling gets louder, and the tension in the air becomes thick enough to choke on. Suddenly, a massive humanoid monster with a vertical, toothy maw lunges out of the shadows. Vice reaches for his blade, but Dance jumps in front of him, telling him to stay back and let her handle it. She's running low on magic, so she decides to call out her next strongest servant. She channels what's left of her power to summon her magical wolf. But nothing happened. The beast was closing in, slamming into her golem with terrifying force. But as she tries to complete the summon, she realizes something is horribly wrong. Her magic isn't activating at all, leaving them completely wide open. The pale beast lunges with its massive, vertical maw, ready to end them right then and there. Dance is frozen in place, unable to do anything but watch as death closes in. Without a second thought, Vice throws himself in front of her, taking the full force of the beast's attack. The impact is brutal, sending Vice skidding across the concrete as blood sprays into the air. He hits the ground hard, his body battered and covered in deep gashes. Dance rushes to his side, her voice trembling as Vice tries to tell her his training will see him through. But internally, Vice is starting to sweat. He can't feel his physical enhancement magic anymore. The beast isn't done yet, and Dance's hands shake as she realizes her summons still aren't answering her call. She lets out a scream of pure frustration, demanding to know why nothing is working the way it should. In that moment of desperation, a red light erupts between them, forming a strange, new magic circle. Dance stares at it in confusion. This definitely wasn't the spell she was trying to cast. Out of the magical light, the silhouette of a massive wolf beast rises up, cloaked in dark, swirling energy. She calls out to Vice, but the man on the ground is gone, replaced by something much more primal. The wolf lets out a bone-chilling roar that echoes through the abandoned skyscrapers. Vice has undergone a complete transformation, standing as a massive werewolf hybrid between Dance and the monster. His eyes glow a menacing red, showing no trace of the stoic warrior he once was. With a single swipe of his claws, the werewolf tears through the pale beast like it was made of paper. Dance can only watch in silence, trying to process the terrifying power on display. It's then that she realizes the wolf beast she tried to summon has somehow fused directly with Vice's body. The werewolf takes a heavy step forward, the ground cracking under its immense weight. It throws its head back and howls at the multiple moons, a sound of pure, unbridled power. The city seems to tremble under the force of the beast's voice. Dance tentatively calls his name, hoping there's still some part of Vice left in there. But the werewolf just snarls, its animalistic instincts having completely taken over. She cowers as the massive beast turns its gaze toward her, its intentions anything but friendly. The werewolf looms over her, a shadow of death that she herself accidentally created. Tears prick her eyes as she blames herself for turning her only ally into a monster. The beast lets out another deafening roar, preparing to lunge at the terrified girl. In a blind panic, Dance screams and lashes out with the only weapon she has left, her leg. She puts every ounce of her fear and desperation into a single, high-flying kick. Her foot connects with pinpoint accuracy, landing a devastating blow right between the werewolf's legs. The beast's eyes bulge, and for a split second the world goes completely silent. The shock of the nutshot is so intense that the wolf spirit is literally kicked out of Vice's body. The transformation shatters, and Vice's human form goes limp, crashing into the dirt. Dance takes a moment to catch her breath, realizing that the nutcracker technique actually worked. She looks down at the fallen warrior, her face a mix of relief and lingering shock. Vice is finally back to normal, though he looks like he's seen better days. As the sun starts to peek over the horizon, Vice's first thought is to ask if she made it out unhurt. He sits up, nursing a phantom pain in his lower half that he can't quite explain. He's baffled by the idea of merging with a beast, wondering if Dance secretly possessed such high-level magic all along. Dance immediately shuts him down, claiming she's not nearly talented enough to pull off a stunt like that. She slumps down, dejected by the fact that her normal summoning magic is still completely MIA. Vice reflects on how his masteries have changed in this new environment. He confirms that even his most basic body enhancement magic has failed him. Without his usual powers, he knows they are in a desperate situation. He suggests that the merger they just discovered is their only chance at survival. Vice proposes a plan. Dance provides the magic and he provides the muscle. He officially asks Dance to join forces with him so they can find a way home. Dance's ego immediately inflates, finding his reliance on her amusing. She haughtily accepts his plea, enjoying her newfound position of power. Their conversation is interrupted by a sudden rustling in the nearby bushes. To their relief, it's just Dance's low-level magical beasts returning from their scouting mission. The scouts have found a water source, though Dance is annoyed by how well her summons are getting along with Vice. They arrive at a pristine lake, a rare oasis of beauty in the middle of the ruined city. Dance doesn't waste a second, stripping down and diving into the cool water with a joyful shout. Vice remains focused on survival, noting the lake as a prime spot for food and drink. But he knows they can't stay here forever. The goal is still to get back to their own world. His thoughts are shattered by a sudden, blood-curdling scream from the water. A massive sea serpent erupts from the depths, dwarfing the tiny demon girl. Seeing the beast's power, Vice realizes they are completely outmatched in their current states. He shouts a desperate command for Dance to initiate another magical beast merger. Dance hesitates, terrified that he'll turn into a mindless monster again. Vice promises to keep his sanity through sheer grit, urging her to hurry before it's too late. Seeing no other choice, Dance steals her resolve and prepares the spell. She casts her summoning circle, calling forth the spirit of the sea to bind with her companion. A violent surge of red energy envelops Vice as the second merger begins. A blue, clawed hand emerges from a dark purple mist. Sharp red eyes glow with primal intensity beneath messy hair. Vice has completely transformed, his body now covered in blue scales and fins. He stands as a powerful aquatic hybrid, ready for a fight in the churning water. The warrior lets out a deafening roar that echoes across the lake. Dance covers herself in the water, staring up at him in pure shock. She can see it in his eyes. He's losing himself to the transformation again. Behind her, the massive head of a white sea serpent rises from the depths with its jaws wide open. Dance panics, yelling at the transformed swordsman to snap out of it and do something. The water explodes as the beast makes its move. Vice lunges forward, catching the serpent's massive, toothy maw with his bare hands. Seeing him hold his own, a look of relief finally washes over Dance. Even in this feral state, Vice is determined not to lose until he gets her home safely. He strains against the monster's strength, keeping its jaws from snapping shut. With a fierce cry, he prepares his counterattack. A massive shockwave ripples through the water as he lands a solid hit. He leaps onto the serpent's head, driving his fists into the thick, slimy hide. From below, Dance cheers him on, screaming for him to finish the beast off. Vice delivers a powerful, scale-shattering kick. He follows up with a rapid-fire strike, moving through the water with unnatural speed. The swordsman winds up for a final, decisive blow. He puts everything into this last strike to end it. The serpent can only watch as the killing blow comes down. A massive pillar of force slams through the monster, splitting the water around them. The giant serpent collapses, its blood staining the lake as it goes down for good. Dance celebrates their victory, even if the scene is a little too gross for her. As the adrenaline fades, Vice starts to stumble and lose his grip on reality. The feral energy takes over, and he lets out another bone-chilling roar. He's gone completely berserk, lunging straight for the girl he just saved. Dance grits her teeth. She has no choice but to fight back. She delivers her specialty, a high-speed anti-air kick straight to his crotch. Things finally settle down as the sun shines over the peaceful lake. Later, Vice wakes up in his human form, groggily apologizing for losing control again. He mentions a sharp, mysterious pain in his crotch, which Dance quickly dismisses as a side effect. Vice notices her new outfit. She's ditched her rags for some modern Gyaru clothes found nearby. Dance tells him to stay put and rest, while she goes to scout the area with her servants. He thanks her, but then he spots something strange on his body. Dark, monstrous energy still flickers around his blackened fingertips. He stares in horror, worried that the monsterification might be permanent. He takes a slow breath, and finally his skin returns to its normal color. The swordsman lets out a quiet sigh of relief, glad to be back to himself. Suddenly, Dance comes charging back through the woods, yelling for him to get up. "Someone collapsed over here," Dance shouts, her eyes wide with shock. In a small clearing, an unconscious blonde girl lies sprawled out next to a wrecked wagon. Upon closer inspection, the girl is alive, though her body is covered in nasty bruises. Vice and Dance stand over her, assessing the damage to both the girl and the carriage. Vice checks for major injuries, noting that she seems stable for now but needs a doctor soon. Since they have no way to carry her, Vice suggests fixing up the overturned wagon for transport. He reasons that a wagon means there's a road, and following it will eventually lead them to a town. The swordsman calls on Dance's summons to help him with the heavy lifting and repairs. As Vice gets to work, Dance sits back and watches him take charge of the labor. She stares at him with a silent, judging expression. With a determined look, Vice declares he'll protect her until they find a way back home. Dance narrows her eyes, wondering why he's acting so incredibly cheesy all of a sudden. She watches him strain against the heavy wood, wondering what's actually going through his head. In reality, Vice is just happy to find some manual labor to train his muscles. The sun shines bright through the canopy as they finish their work and head out. Soon, the golem is pulling the wagon down the dirt path with the trio on board. In the back, the blonde survivor starts to regain consciousness, groaning in pain. Meanwhile, the bumpy ride is doing a number on Dance, who looks like she's about to lose her lunch. She tells the girl to hang in there, glad that they at least don't have to travel on foot. Vice remains quiet, his mind racing as he searches for any clue on how to return to their world. He knows he's currently too weak to handle the powerful beasts in this alien land. The swordsman resolves to regain his strength so he can master his fusion ability. Suddenly, the girl in the back speaks up, catching both of them by surprise. Now that she's awake, she offers to be their guide to the nearest town as thanks for the rescue. A giant stone golem drags a wooden carriage down a dirt path, followed closely by a black, four-legged beast. Inside the cart, the blonde survivor they just rescued wakes up, introduces herself as Marcia, and thanks them for the help. Dance gets a kick out of introducing Vice as her gorilla of a partner, which he clearly doesn't appreciate. Vice leans in to whisper a warning. This world is dangerous, and giving out real names to total strangers is a rookie mistake. Dance immediately starts panicking, realizing she just spilled her real name to people she barely knows. Vice doesn't really care about the name drama and just asks her if she can actually guide them to the nearest town. The road ahead winds through the hills toward a town called Taguna, which is their best bet for finding civilization. Marcia explains she was already heading that way herself until she got jumped by a monster near the lake. Vice casually opens up his storage magic, showing off a giant monster's head that he definitely didn't throw away. Dance and Marcia both lose it, and Dance screams at him to get that gross thing out of their sight immediately. While the group is bickering in the cart, a pair of riders spots them from across the open field. A captain in silver armor and her subordinate watch the strange, golem-pulled carriage approaching. Vice hears a shout telling them to halt, and he looks back to see the knights closing in. The soldiers ride up and block the road, effectively putting an end to their little road trip. The captain doesn't waste any time, demanding to know exactly what kind of monster they've got following them. Marcia tries to play it off, claiming they're just simple merchants who got ambushed along the way. The knights aren't buying the merchant story, especially given the weird company they're keeping. The captain looks at the massive stone golem and the dragon. Those definitely don't look like merchant gear. Dance pipes up and tells them the creatures are just her familiars, trying to sound as convincing as possible. She strikes a proud pose and claims she's a tamer who's got the magical beasts under her complete control. The captain isn't impressed by the boast and keeps her expression ice cold. She stares Dance right in the eye and tells her she's officially under arrest. Dance is completely stunned, her mouth hanging open at the sudden turn of events. The captain explains that there's been a surge of beast attacks lately, which makes a tamer like her the #1 suspect. The interrogation is cut short when another soldier rides up in a panic, shouting about a horde of beasts. The captain is shocked to hear they've already appeared again so soon. She tells the group to find somewhere safe to evacuate while her squad handles the incoming threat. As the knights charge off, Vice and Dance watch them go, and Dance suggests they should probably lend a hand. Dance is a bit hesitant, wondering if it's better to just run, but Vice says helping out will prove they aren't enemies. Besides, our guy mentions he's got something he wants to test out anyway. Dance can only look at him with a confused "what now" expression. Down the road, a massive cloud of dust rises as the horde of monsters comes crashing toward the knights. It's a pack of nasty-looking ogres, at least 10 of them, and they aren't here for a friendly chat. The captain draws her sword, telling her small squad to prepare for a fight to the death against the overwhelming numbers. With a look of pure determination, she commands her soldiers to charge. The knights gallop head-on into the fray, their horses kicking up dust as they move to engage. A quick sword slash cleaves right through one of the ogres, sending blood flying everywhere. The captain rides through the carnage, her sword already dripping as she continues the fight. The battle turns ugly fast as one of the knights gets caught in an ogre's massive, toothy maw. Another soldier screams in terror as a giant monster opens its mouth right in front of his face. Covered in blood, the captain realizes these things are way stronger than they thought, and they're in a bad spot. Suddenly, she realizes a massive creature has snuck up right behind her, and things are looking pretty grim. The captain's face tightens as she realizes her squad is about to be completely overrun. Suddenly, a massive punch connects with an ogre's open mouth, sending blood spraying everywhere while the captain looks on in shock. Vice looks back over his shoulder, completely unfazed by the monster he just deleted. He lands right in front of the captain and tells her he's here to back them up. She's skeptical, pointing out that he's charging into a monster horde without even holding a weapon. Vice just gives her a stoic look and tells her that his body is the only weapon he needs. A massive, multi-eyed ogre looms over him, but Vice doesn't even flinch. He clenches his fist, feeling the essence of the magical beasts he's slain fusing into his own blood and flesh. A glowing red magic circle erupts around his arm as he prepares to unleash a hell of a punch. A massive explosion of light and energy blinds everyone on the battlefield as he connects. When the smoke clears, his right arm is encased in a jagged, blue-white armored gauntlet with a glowing eye. The captain is completely speechless, staring at the literal monster of a weapon he just manifested. Vice slams his fist forward, sending a massive shockwave of blue energy through the enemy lines. The other soldiers are losing their minds, wondering what kind of man can take down an ogre with a single strike. Vice yells at the squad to keep the pressure on and finish the job in one go. He delivers another explosive blow, ripping right through the monster ranks. He's a whirlwind of destruction, clearing the field with the kind of power that shouldn't be humanly possible. The captain watches in absolute awe as he single-handedly takes on multiple beasts at once. She finally snaps out of her daze and orders the remaining knights to regroup immediately. Drawing her sword, she commands them to help wipe out the rest of the monsters while they've got the momentum. The knights charge back into the fray, finishing off the monsters that are already scrambling to escape. Vice lands one last thudding punch to clear the remaining stragglers. Standing atop a pile of monster corpses, he casually mentions that's the last of them. The captain thanks him for saving their lives, but she can't help but ask about the weird situation with his arm. She quickly stops herself, realizing it's probably better not to question the secrets of the guy who just bilayed them out. Smiling, she admits that she hasn't even had the chance to ask for his name yet. He introduces himself as Vice, keeping things simple. She says next time they meet, the drinks are definitely on her. They seal the encounter with a handshake, though his arm is still looking a bit intense. She politely asks if he could maybe change his arm back to its human form now that the fight is over. Dance and Marcia look over the carnage, still trying to process the absolute slaughter they just witnessed. Marcia notes that Vice basically took care of the entire horde by himself. She mentions how a single beast like that can destroy a whole knight order, yet he treated them like target practice. Dance tries to laugh it off, but she's secretly terrified of the unknown power Vice just tapped into. Suddenly, a tiny, round version of the monster starts growling at them from under a pile of bodies. They look down at the little guy, and Marcia warns her it's probably best not to touch it. Dance points at the tiny beast, completely confused as to why it's so small. A bright red light suddenly shines from the creature, catching both girls by surprise. A blue system screen pops up announcing that the ogre has been successfully tamed. The two of them sit on the ground, staring down at a small blue crystal that just appeared. Dance lets out a massive scream of pure confusion. She yells out to the open sky, wondering what on earth is even happening in this world anymore. The sign for the Hashotai Inn hangs prominently over the entrance, a welcome sight after a long day. A cheerful waitress welcomes the weary group inside, carrying a tray of food and frothy drinks. Dance takes a huge gulp of beer, letting out a satisfied sigh as the cold drink hits the spot. The trio sits around a table piled with food, finally enjoying their first decent meal since the chaos began. Vice looks across the table, asking Marcia if she's really certain about footing the bill for their stay. She tells them not to sweat it, explaining that her connections with the knights cover all their expenses. Dance's mind immediately jumps to their finances, wondering how they can make more cash in this weird world. She pulls out the glowing blue crystal from earlier, speculating on how much the ogre stone might be worth. Marcia takes a look, admitting it's beautiful but doubting its value since its origins are such a mystery. She can't help but ponder the strange power Vice used to slaughter the monsters earlier. A thought crosses her mind, and she notes that it's almost like the legendary powers of the Demon King. Vice catches the comment and asks for clarification, but Marcia quickly backpedals, claiming she didn't mean anything specific. He gives her a confused look while Dance, oblivious to the heavy mood, shouts for another round of beer. High above, 3 glowing crescent moons hang in the star-filled night sky. After the meal, Dance literally flops onto the bed, completely stuffed and happy. She sprawls out on the mattress, declaring that fluffy beds are the absolute peak of civilization. Marcia sits nearby, suddenly feeling a bit awkward about their shared room situation. She can't help but ask if Vice and Dance are actually a couple. Dance's face turns bright red as she yells at Marcia for even suggesting something so ridiculous. Marcia just smiles and mentions a romance novel she read once, making Dance realize her new friend is a total romantic dreamer. The demon girl tries to change the subject, begging for something actually interesting to talk about. Marcia taps her chin, thinking of a story that might finally pique their interest. She explains the shocking truth. This entire world exists deep underground, far beneath the surface. Vice listens intently, his mind racing as he tries to process the concept of an underworld. Dance joins the conversation, admitting that the details are fuzzy even for her. She mentions how all sorts of weird things just seem to fall down here. Marcia looks out at the ruined cityscape, calling this place the world at the bottom. Vice wonders if that makes him and Dance fallers as well, a possibility that seems more likely by the second. Dance rests on the bed, realizing that the very laws of reality are different in this subterranean world. She points out that Marcia has actually met other fallers before, which gives them a real lead. Getting excited, Dance figures that if they talk to these people, they might find a way back home. Vice gives her a rare, small smile, agreeing that it's a significant step forward. Dance immediately starts fishing for more compliments, her ego inflating by the second. She demands that he praise her even more for her supposedly brilliant information gathering. Vice's expression turns flat as he tries to keep up with her endless demands for validation. He gives a half-hearted acknowledgement, but Dance is already in her own world of self-satisfaction. Her voice carries through the night air as she complains about his lack of enthusiasm. The inn sits quietly in the moonlight, seemingly peaceful for the moment. Eventually, exhaustion catches up to the girls, and they fall into a deep sleep. Vice finally gets some rest too, the long and chaotic day finally taking its toll. But in the middle of the night, his eyes snap open as his instincts scream at him that something is wrong. Outside, a gargantuan toad monster is hopping toward the inn, its massive body shaking the very ground. The giant toad monster glares with its massive, bloodshot eyes, a true magical beast that has suddenly appeared to terrorize the settlement. Knights scramble through the night, their leader shouting orders to evacuate the hotel guests immediately. A young soldier reports to his captain that all units are finally in position to engage the beast. The captain, her silver-blue hair catching the moonlight, commands her team to keep the monster away from the village at all costs. She gives the signal, and a barrage of arrows is unleashed into the dark sky toward the target. The arrows rain down upon the toad's bumpy hide, but they don't seem to be having much of an effect. The beast stands its ground, almost indifferent to the projectiles pelting its thick skin. It lets out a low, rumbling croak, its massive form shrouded in a light mist as it prepares to strike back. The captain's brow furrows in frustration as she realizes her archer's efforts are completely useless against its armor. Suddenly, the toad opens its cavernous mouth, revealing a fleshy, pink interior. With lightning speed, its long, sticky tongue shoots out toward the knights, a blur of pink across the battlefield. The powerful tongue slams into the ground, sending soldiers flying and shattering the stone floor with a massive explosion of debris. A knight cries out for their captain as the devastating attack continues to rip through their defense. The captain barely manages to dodge, her expression hardening as she realizes how dire the situation has become. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupts from the side, drawing everyone's attention. Vice appears through the smoke, his presence immediately commanding the field as the captain calls out his name in shock. With a fierce battle cry, he charges forward, his eyes locked onto the gargantuan beast. He leaps into the air, a silver-white gauntlet forming over his arm as he prepares to deliver a crushing blow. His fist slams into the toad's head, but the impact only ripples across its thick, rubbery skin without breaking through. Vice grinds his teeth, realizing that even his enhanced physical attacks aren't enough to pierce its hide. The toad stares back at him, seemingly unfazed by the strike as Vice realizes he needs a much more powerful strategy. He looks toward the hotel's central fountain, an idea suddenly taking shape in his mind. With a focused thought, he channels a torrent of water toward the monster, a devastating liquid blade slicing through the air. He fully embraces the power of the sea serpent he fused with, his entire body glowing as he prepares to finish the fight once and for all. Vice focuses on his crystalline gauntlet, deciding to gather and compress the surrounding water for his next move. The water begins to swirl and condense into a tight, high-pressure sphere around his hand. With his power fully charged and the water spiraling around him, the swordsman prepares to unleash the attack. He locks onto his target and lets the blast fly. A massive beam of pressurized water tears straight through the monster, ending the struggle in a single flash of light. The captain and her soldiers can only watch in stunned silence at the sheer scale of Vice's power. Vice stands over the remains of his enemy, his transformed gauntlet slowly beginning to settle. Dance finally catches up, apologizing because she'd been fast asleep. Vice just shrugs it off, nodding the opponent wasn't much of a challenge anyway. The demon girl pokes at the massive head of the creature Vice just killed, wondering if it's some kind of giant frog. She figures if she touches it just like she did with the ogre earlier, something interesting might happen. A sudden blinding red light erupts from her touch, catching her completely off guard. A magical notification confirms she successfully turned the devil frog into her new familiar. In the background, the onlookers can't help but whisper about the girl's strange and terrifying ability. Vice maintains his stoic silence, while Dance looks a little awkward under all the local attention. Later that night, Vice stares up at the sky, noticing the strange moons and feeling like someone is watching them. From somewhere in the darkness, a mysterious voice chuckles. Vice and Dance find themselves enclosed within a glowing blue sphere, trapped by an unseen force. Looking down on them is a massive, angelic figure known as Goddess Hamluna, who curiously calls them Fallers. Hamluna watches with a small smile, wondering if these newcomers will be enough to entertain her. Far below, the world they've been dropped into stretches out, unaware of the divine eyes watching. But the goddess isn't the only one paying attention. A dark, demonic figure sits perched between the moons. She glares down at the duo, her gaze cold and expectant. Back in the forest, Vice and Dance are putting in some work with their new monster companions. The guy takes a deep breath, trying to steady his energy. His eyes sharpen as black sparks start to arc across his face. With a sudden surge of power, his right arm transforms into a jagged, crystalline blue claw. Looks like he can control the transformation now, keeping it localized to just his arm. He figures with enough training, he can do more, but a full-body fusion still needs Dance's help. The summoner and her pets take a moment to look over the new power boost. Dance wonders if they've only gotten this strong, because the laws of this world are just built different. Vice isn't sure about the mechanics, but he knows they need to master every trick they've got. Seeing him get an upgrade makes Dance want to try out something cool herself. She pulls out a glowing blue capture crystal she's been holding onto. She's betting that if she tosses it, a dependable beast will just pop right out to help. "Ogre, I choose you." She hurls the crystal like she's in a monster-catching game. The crystal skips across the dirt while the guy just watches, not entirely convinced. They both wait for a beat, wondering if the thing is actually going to work. Then a massive explosion of light nearly blinds them both. Standing where the crystal landed is Ogre-chan, a giant beast with white fur and 4 glowing red eyes. Dance can't believe it. She really did manage to capture a familiar. Vice realizes this is a total game changer. They can turn their enemies into allies now. The realization of how much power she's sitting on finally starts to sink in for the summoner. She starts wondering if she's some kind of tactical genius, but Vice is quick to shut that down. Later that morning, the crew heads back to the inn to grab some breakfast. Marcia is sitting across from them, wearing a very suspicious grin. Dance tries to ignore it while she cuts into her steak, but she eventually has to ask what's up. Marcia starts teasing them about their little romantic rendezvous out in the misty forest. She gushes about how it sounds like a scene from a novel, making the summoner visibly uncomfortable. Dance immediately gets defensive, telling her she's got the whole thing wrong. Before it gets any more awkward, a woman in a military uniform walks up behind them. It's Helcare, the captain of the Order of Knights, and she's looking surprisingly relaxed. She officially introduces herself, joining the group for a talk at their table. Marcia cuts to the chase and asks if the knights need something from them again. Helcare explains that the local high priest wants to personally thank them for taking care of the beasts. She invites them all to the cathedral so the church can show its appreciation. Dance is already dreaming about the rewards, hopefully some gift certificates. Vice is a bit more cynical, telling her not to expect much from the clergy. The summoner stops for a second, feeling bad about leaving her beast buddies out of the party. Marcia agrees, pointing out that the summons were the ones who really did the heavy lifting. That's when the girl realizes she's committed a cardinal sin. She forgot to feed the guys. She apologizes and tells the others to head to the church, while she runs back to handle the feeding. Out in the clearing, the stone golem and the drake are just chilling, waiting for their meal. Suddenly, the golem's single eye widens as it senses something coming from the tree line. A massive beam of magical energy slams into the clearing out of nowhere. The stone golem takes a bolt right to the eye, but it doesn't seem to slow him down much. One of the assassins figures a headshot isn't going to cut it against a hunk of living rock. They decide that if a bolt won't work, they'll just have to chop the beast into little pieces. But before they can make their move, a cold chill runs down their spines. The assassins ready their daggers, looking for any opening to strike. The golem and the drake are completely cornered, sweating under the pressure of the blades. "That's enough," a voice rings out as Vice suddenly appears right behind the lead attacker. He looks absolutely livid, demanding to know what they think they're doing to his friends. In a flash, he grabs one of them by the wrist, stopping the blade mid-swing. Without breaking a sweat, he slams the hooded guy face first into the dirt. The rest of the squad quickly turns their attention to him, surrounding him from all sides. Vice isn't looking for a bloodbath. He tells them to just walk away before things get ugly. The assassins don't seem like the walking away type, though. One of them just gives a creepy little smirk from under their hood. Vice stands his ground in front of the summons, ready to protect them at all costs. He repeats his question, his voice dropping an octave as the tension peaks. The attackers call him by name, which catches him completely off guard. To these guys, magical beasts are just filthy, things that need to be wiped off the map. Vice's eyes go wide. He has no clue how these random killers even know who he is. It turns out they've been stalking him from the shadows this whole time. They claim to be executors, handing out divine punishment in the name of the goddess Hamluna. Vice doesn't really care about their religious motives or who they work for. Calling his friends filthy was the one line they definitely shouldn't have crossed. The assassin seems almost amused by the fact that he'd actually defend a monster. They decide that talking is a waste of time and signal for the kill. "Execute them," the leader shouts, and the whole squad lunges forward. Vice warns the golem and the drake to get ready. This isn't just a simple skirmish anymore. The hooded attackers descend on them from every angle with murder in their eyes. The golem lets out a roar and sends one of them flying with a massive stone fist. The drake isn't holding back either, letting loose a blast of flame that scorches the tree line. One of the faster assassins comes at Vice with a blade trail so bright it's almost glowing. He barely manages to lean back in time, feeling the wind of the blade pass inches from his throat. These guys are pros. They're not just swinging wildly, they're aiming for the kill. Vice tracks the movement of the steel, trying to find a gap in their guard. He realizes he's dealing with some serious swordsmanship here. Another slash comes in, forcing him to keep up his defensive footwork. He ducks under a high swing, keeping his eyes glued to his opponent's rhythm. He notes that their movements are incredibly swift and precise, constantly aiming for his vital spots. He knows that if the fight drags on, they'll be at a disadvantage, so he decides to step things up. The assassin is genuinely shocked as Vice starts to manifest a crystalline gauntlet crackling with energy. "Receive divine punishment," the hooded guy screams, diving in for one final strike. But Vice just grins and loads up a massive punch that's about to end the debate. Vice's fist connects with a thunderous impact, releasing a surge of crystalline energy and crackling black lightning. One of the hooded attackers is caught in the shockwave and sent spiraling through the air like a rag doll. A thick cloud of dust and debris settles as the surviving assassins struggle to catch their breath. Their leader realizes they've bitten off more than they can chew and quickly orders a full retreat. Peace returns to the forest clearing as Vice watches the last of the intruders vanish into the tree line. The stone golem and the drake let out a low rumble, finally relaxing their guard as the danger passes. Vice's gaze lands on the one figure left behind. Someone he suspected was more than just a simple thug. He leans over the unconscious captive, confirming his suspicion that the assassin is actually a woman. Meanwhile, miles away, the sun begins to set over the imposing towers of a grand stone cathedral. Inside the holy halls, Kelher leads Dance and Marcia down the long red carpet toward the altar. The Hamelna priest stands before them with a calm smile, thanking them for their service in neutralizing the beast threat. Kelher formally introduces her companions, Dance and Marcia, to the high-ranking cleric. Dance looks a bit uneasy, whispering to Kelher about whether they should really be doing this without Vice. The priest leans in, his interest piqued by the rumor that Dance has the rare ability to tame magical beasts. Ever the cheerful one, Dance brags about how she and her monsters are basically total besties. But the priest's warm facade immediately crumbles, his eyes turning cold as he looks down at her with pure disgust. The heavy silence of the church is shattered by the sharp sound of steel being unsheathed. From the shadows behind the altar, a squad of hooded executors steps forward into the light. Dance gasps in shock as multiple daggers are suddenly leveled at her throat from every direction. Kelher is just as stunned, screaming at the high priest to explain what this betrayal is all about. The priest drops all pretenses, declaring Dance an impure being that needs to be purged in the name of the goddess. He stands amidst his followers, cold-bloodedly announcing that her judgment will be carried out immediately. With a sinister glint in his eyes, he adds that Vice is already being hunted and will be joining her in the afterlife soon. That mention of Vice is the final straw for Dance, whose expression shifts from fear to absolute rage. She reaches for her summoning stones, calling out for her most powerful allies to manifest. In a violent flash of red light, Ogre-chan and Frog-chan materialize right in the middle of the sanctuary. The priest flinches as the two massive monsters loom over him, their presence defiling the holy ground. Dance points a trembling finger at the cleric, vowing to make him regret ever picking a fight with her. The church pews are dwarfed by the sheer size of the ogre and the frog as they prepare to crush the assassins. The high priest is nearly speechless with fury that such filthy creatures would dare to set foot in his church. Ogre-chan gnashes his teeth, while Frog-chan's yellow eyes lock onto their targets with predatory intent. "Blow them all away," Dance screams, unleashing her summons for a full-scale assault. The two behemoths roar and lunge forward, ready to tear through the line of hooded executors. While his attendants cower in terror, the priest remains eerily composed in the face of the incoming monsters. "You fools, stay back," he bellows, his voice echoing with divine authority. He raises his hand, and a blinding wall of golden radiance erupts from the ground like a tidal wave. The sheer force of the holy energy slams into Ogre-chan and Frog-chan, halting their charge mid-swing. A massive, shimmering barrier now divides the church, protecting the altar and the priest from the impure invaders. Dance stumbles back, her eyes wide as she realizes her strongest summons can't even get close to him. The priest laughs at her efforts, claiming that no dark arts can ever pierce the sacred blessing of the goddess. Kelher draws her own blade, demanding to know how a man of the cloth can justify this senseless violence. But the priest just looks at her with a stern, judging gaze, commanding his loyal knight to arrest the wicked woman at once. Kelher remains frozen in disbelief, as the Hamelna priest continues his hateful sermon, claiming the goddess will never forgive anyone who commands magical beasts. Her gaze sharpens with intense fury, her teeth gritted as she listens to the cleric call for their immediate purging. Standing behind her massive summons, Dance feels the weight of the situation, her mind racing for a way out of this trap. Marcia, her patience completely gone, yells at Dance to just level the entire church and be done with it. Marcia's face is a mask of pure determination, realizing that running away is no longer an option they can afford to take slowly. Dance hardens her resolve, giving the order to her monsters as she prepares to fight her way through the holy halls. "Go on, tear the place apart, you two," she screams, unleashing Ogre-chan and Frog-chan for a final assault. Ogre-chan's massive fist comes down like a falling mountain, shattering stone and wood with a single crushing blow. The impact creates a shockwave that rattles the very foundations of the cathedral, sending splinters and rubble flying everywhere. Frog-chan joins in, lashing out with a tongue that moves like a high-velocity projectile, further wrecking the inner sanctuary. The priest and his cowering attendants can only watch in horror as their sacred church is systematically dismantled by the beasts. Dance lets out a triumphant laugh, taunting the cleric about the consequences of opposing someone with her level of power. In the chaos of the collapsing ceiling, a large piece of masonry breaks loose from the high vaulted arches. Dance is caught completely off guard as the heavy stone block slams into her head, cutting her laughter short and knocking her senseless. A massive explosion of dust and smoke erupts as the main hall of the church finally caves in, burying the altar under a heap of ruins. The surrounding forest falls quiet as the roar of the collapse echoes through the sunset-drenched hills. Back in the forest clearing, Vice stands with his monsters, processing the news that even the church has turned hostile. From above, we see the small group reunited. Dance is unconscious on the ground, having been successfully extracted from the disaster. Vice thanks Marcia for her help in nursing Dance back to health after the girl's reckless display of power. Kelher looks away, her head bowed in shame and guilt over the honorable wound she feels responsible for. Marcia urgently warns the group that they need to move immediately before more church assassins arrive on their trail. She explains the danger they're in, nodding that the Hamluna church won't stop until every impure existence is wiped out. Marcia describes the regional worship of goddess Hamluna, a deity whose followers believe in absolute human supremacy. To the church, all demi-humans and magical beasts are abominations that must be eliminated to preserve the goddess's light. Kelher can hardly believe it. After everything Vice did to save the district, the high priest still tried to have him killed. Back in the forest, the group regroups near the stone golem. With the church now officially their enemy, Kelher suggests they move out immediately and use the darkness of night to lose any pursuers. Meanwhile, at the ruins of the cathedral, the Hamluna priest is already hard at work spinning the narrative. He stands before the wreckage, telling the crowd that this tragedy was the work of filthy heretics. The citizens are clearly shaken. They listen intently as their leader paints the duo as dangerous outcasts. Standing before the image of the goddess, the priest puts on quite a performance, calling for justice amidst the smoke and debris. He vows to the people that a day is coming when the light of goddess Hamluna will finally purge all evil from this world. The Hamluna priest stands before the ruins of the cathedral, preaching to a massive crowd. He brands Vice and Dance as servants of the Demon King, blaming them for the destruction of the church. Not even Kelher, the former knight captain, is spared, labeled an apostate for helping them. The priest tells the crowd that as long as these heretics live, there will never be peace in this land. He demands their eradication, screaming for the people to rise up and fight. The fanatical crowd responds with a roar, raising their fists in a frenzy. Meanwhile, the group is deep in the woods as the sun begins to set. Vice is still lugging a sleeping Dance around while the blonde survivor wonders if they'll ever get out of here. She looks back, clearly worried about who might be trailing them. Kelher is doing her part too, carrying the unconscious sleeping assassin they took prisoner. Vice insists they couldn't just leave her behind to die in the forest. Dance finally starts to stir, slowly opening her eyes. She realizes she's being carried like a princess and immediately starts to panic. She's completely embarrassed, shouting at Vice for the princess carry while the others just walk ahead. Vice tells her to pipe down. He hears something coming. The sound of galloping hooves echoes through the dense trees. A squad of horses charges through the clearing at full speed. The group stops dead as the order of knights finally catches up to them. More knights in black capes ride past, completely surrounding them. Dance panics and tells Kelher to just order her former subordinates to go somewhere else. But Kelher just looks away. She can't help them this time. She explains that she's already been branded a heretic, just like the rest of them. In this territory, the Hamluna faith is the law, and anyone who goes against it is purged. Losing her honor and her rank has her feeling like she's already socially dead. Dance feels a pang of guilt, wondering if they're the reason Kelher lost everything. Suddenly, an arrow whistles through the air right past her head. Dance and the blonde survivor dive for cover as the knights start their attack. The soldiers shout for the others to search the bushes, closing in on their position. Dance tells Vice to get moving and take them out like he always does. But Vice hesitates. He doesn't want to kill regular citizens who are just following orders. Dance points out that if they just stand there, they're never getting out of this forest. She realizes they need a plan that doesn't involve slaughtering everyone. If he won't fight, their only option is to run faster than the horses. She summons a unicorn spirit and initiates a merge ritual right then and there. A massive magic circle forms under Vice, surging with red light. The knights reach the brush, telling the heretics to just give up and come out. A pillar of energy erupts from the clearing as the transformation takes hold. A massive, monstrous beast form towers over the terrified knights. The knights can only scream in terror as they realize what they're up against. The beast leaps into the air with the whole group on its back, clearing the knights easily. Dance laughs like a maniac, telling Vice to keep the speed up and not hold back. The knights are left in the dust, shocked by the incredible power they just saw. Deep in the forest, a dark shape blurs past the trees at incredible speed. High above the canopy, a mysterious figure with silver pigtails and a dragon tail floats before 3 crescent moons. This is the Demon King, Titenda, and her glowing yellow eyes are fixed on the fleeing group below. She whispers the names of the 2 who caught her interest, Vice and Dance. Back at the cathedral ruins, a knight trembles as he delivers the news of their escape to his superior. The Homilna priest is livid, his hands trembling with rage in front of the statue of his goddess. He screams at the knight to stop wasting time and get back to the hunt himself. He orders wanted posters and massive bounties to be spread across every town immediately. To him, capturing these heretics is the only thing that matters right now. Meanwhile, the real goddess Homilna watches the world with her eyes closed, seemingly indifferent to the chaos. The priest finds himself transported to a divine sphere, trapped in a cage of light before his deity. The goddess speaks with cold disdain, calling the creatures of the world unnecessary filth. She holds a tiny bird in her hand, her expression one of serene but terrifying arrogance. Her goal is simple, to wipe out everything she deems an abomination and rule a world built only for herself. Back on the ground, the beast that was once Vice is still charging through the fields like a nightmare. Dance and the blonde survivor are clinging on for dear life as the woods blur past. The transformation has taken over completely, leaving Vice a snarling, feral animal. Dance realizes with horror that he's gone completely berserk again. She struggles to stay on, shouting that he's always such a handful when he loses it. She knows she has to be the one to snap him out of it before he runs them both into the ground. She screams at the top of her lungs, ordering him to stop and do his job as her protector. For a second, the wild red glow in his eyes seems to flicker. His massive paws slam into the earth, tearing up the landscape as he finally slows down. The merge ends abruptly, sending Dance and the other girl tumbling onto the grass. Dance picks herself up, coughing through the dust and checking to see if she's still in one piece. A few feet away, Vice has reverted to his human form, hunched over in a state of total collapse. She asks him if he's okay, but he won't even look at her. He's drowning in self-loathing, calling himself pathetic for losing control of the monster inside. Dance doesn't have time for a pity party, she's just glad they're alive. The stone golem and the dark drake pull up with a wagon, having managed to catch up to them. She tells the group they need to keep moving until they're far beyond the church's reach. That's when Kelher speaks up, telling them she won't be coming any further. The group stares in shock as the former captain explains she's a disgraced knight now. She doesn't want to bring even more danger to them by staying around. Dance isn't having any of it. She grabs Kelher and calls her annoying for being so dramatic. She tells her to just shut up and get in the wagon, because they're in this together. Kelher is stunned as she's shoved into the back alongside the sleeping assassin. She never expected to be treated like a friend by the people she was supposed to hunt. Suddenly, Vice's head snaps up, his combat instincts flaring. The forest goes quiet, and he realizes that something far worse than knights is heading their way. He shouts for everyone to run as a dark pressure begins to fill the air. The wagon wheels spin frantically as they try to outrun whatever is coming out of the shadows. Vice looks back in alarm as he senses a dark pressure closing in from the shadows behind them. He cries out in shock, unable to believe the size of the entity that is pursuing them through the forest. A massive black wolf tears through the brush, its eyes glowing with a sinister, otherworldly light. The creature is a blur of dark fur and predatory speed, closing the gap between them in an instant. The stone golem pushes the heavy wagon forward with all its strength as the wolf continues its relentless chase. Vice urges the group to go faster, his voice tight with the realization that they are almost caught. Dance looks back with an expression of intense focus and frustration, wanting to help but feeling restricted. He considers transforming but hesitates, remembering the danger of going berserk if he loses control. Realizing he has no choice, Vice decides to attempt to draw upon the unicorn's power on his own. He braces himself, his body tensing as he tries to manifest the magical energy within him. Dance watches him intently, worrying that his lack of mastery over the possession ability will lead to disaster. She tells Vice directly that he isn't used to the ability yet and suspects his proficiency is still too low. Internally, she wonders if she will still have a purpose if Vice learns to use his powers without her help. Kelhair cuts through the tension with a sharp command, shouting that now is not the time for chatting. A warning of "it's coming" echoes as the black wolf lunges for a devastating strike. A massive explosion of purple energy hits the ground, sending a shockwave through the clearing. From the smoke and debris, a regal and imposing figure begins to materialize. It is the Demon King, Titenda, revealing her true form with silver pigtails and a powerful dragon-like tail. Vice and Dance are frozen in place, completely overwhelmed by the crushing aura the Demon King radiates. Kelhair's voice falters as she recognizes the legendary figure standing before them. She identifies her as the Demon King, Titenda, a being of immense and terrifying power. Titenda raises her hand, manifesting several intricate magic circles that hum with destructive energy. With a casual gesture, she unleashes multiple beams of purple light aimed directly at the group. The forest is engulfed in a blinding violet glare as the magical attacks strike with incredible force. The ground is left shattered and smoking, with a thick cloud of dust obscuring the aftermath of the blast. Vice stands firm at the center of the destruction, his hand glowing with a protective blue light that shielded his companions. Titenda looks on with a cool, detached expression, acknowledging that he blocked her attack. Vice roars at her, demanding to know who she is and vowing to show no mercy if she harms his companions. Titenda smiles enigmatically, questioning if his vow includes everyone currently standing behind him. When Vice confirms his loyalty to Kelhair and the others, she notes the unusual mix of humans and beasts in his party. Titenda finds Vice to be a strange and intriguing human for his unconventional views and hidden strength. She stands tall and majestic, the magical power still swirling around her in a display of absolute authority. She leaves them with an ominous question, asking if Vice will become her power or choose a darker path. In a sudden flash of purple energy, the Demon King vanishes as mysteriously as she arrived. Vice stares at the empty clearing, his body still tense as he processes the incredible encounter. Dance exhales a shaky breath, comparing the encounter to a shitty boss fight from her previous life. Later that night, the group huddles near the wagon to discuss their next steps, while avoiding the influence of both powers. Kelhair turns to the blonde merchant they rescued, asking if she knows of a safe location to regroup. The merchant girl gives an enthusiastic thumbs up, eager to use her knowledge of the land to help her saviors. She points toward the west, suggesting they aim for a neutral town that is unrelated to either faction. The group follows her lead, moving cautiously through the forest as the night air cools around them. They eventually decide to make a large cave their temporary lodging for the night, seeking a moment of much-needed rest. Inside the cave, Dance looks skeptically at the sleeping assassin, questioning if the unconscious girl is truly as dangerous as they were led to believe. As the merchant girl announces that the campfire is ready, Vice sits in silence, his eyes fixed on the dark recesses of the cavern. Noticing his intense and wary gaze, the merchant girl asks Vice what is wrong, sensing his growing unease. Vice continues to stare into the pitch-black depths of the cave, wondering just how far the subterranean passage might actually go.